Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Project Positive Planet. Thank you, Kira and Kim, for joining me today. So this is episode 5 on plant-based healing, empowering women working in CBD and hemp globally. Joining me is Kim Collier, co-founder of CollierConcepts, Kira Reed, founder of marker.com. And thank you to our sponsor, CollierConcepts. Hi, ladies. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
So great to be with you today. Stephanie, thank you for organizing us, bringing us together for this pivotal conversation. Phenomenally excited to welcome Kira to join us today. And just to add to her accolades, she's also the founder of one of the best networking groups for women in this space, and it is called Empowered Women in Cannabis. Is that right, Kira?
Women Empowered in Cannabis.
Women
WEIC.
WEIC. Had the pleasure of speaking with Kira on a panel last year and then also attending one of her networking events. Some of the most wonderful, smart, well-educated executive women, all the way to women growing. It was just phenomenal. So it just goes to show that we all have this in common and together we're better. So Kira, thank you for joining us on this conversation, helping us direct what might be a career change. Today in the news, we're on the 8th of May, and we're almost nearing in the United States 15% unemployment. It's a changing space. We're in the times of uncertainty. We're in times of global transformation in this COVID pause, but we rethink, we reset, we restart. And at the end of this, maybe an opportunity for some of us to really dig deep and find that what we're really empowers us, what we really want to be involved with. And I think we'll also be coming back more to nature, Mother Nature, plant-based healing. And Kira, thank you for guiding us and helping us maybe decide and find ways to be more on the path of CBD and hemp and support transformation.
Well, that is what I am here to do. That's why I started Women Empowered in Cannabis. As a leader in the women's movement, my mission is to create a very large tent that women who are passionate about the plant, who are passionate about healing, can find a home and a tribe.
Awesome. Yes, it's amazing. Speaking of home and tribe, this is a little bit of a diversion, but it's so cool. Kira and her darling husband now have a new mobile home. She's dedicated to keeping up building community, not hopping on airplanes, but they've got their cool RV, they've got their truck to pull it, and hopefully they're coming up to Montana. We can't wait to welcome you, and wherever you're going in the world, keep us posted. How can we find out about where you're going to be and what's happening? It's through WEIC, is that right?
Yeah, womenempoweredinCannabis.com is a great way to get to the Facebook pages. We do have a shadow ban because we are talking about cannabis, hemp, and CBD, but Facebook doesn't really care. So they have forced us to you have to get the link in order to find us. You can't just go and type in the search bar, Women Empowered in Cannabis, and find it. So it's a little bit tricky, but you can get there through womenempoweredinCannabis.com.
Got it. Fabulous. Before we start on this conversation, I just had a personal question for each of you. What's on your bedside table? What are you reading these days? Stop the book.
Proof of Conspiracy by Seth Abramson.
Oh, girl.
How Trump betrayed America.
Oh, wow. Wow. Okay. Yes, that's a whole nother webinar, a whole nother, and absolutely. What a read. What a read. Stephanie, we actually have the book Fear, and I haven't read it. I just look at it, I'm like, okay, not going there yet.
It'll be great to read in 20 years.
What's that?
It'll be great to read in 20 years when we have so much distance from it. Then you can look back and go, oh, I remember that.
Yes, that's what was happening, right? Stephanie, what about you?
I've been on a lot of webinars. I have a whole stack of books that I've not been reading. So once we find some balance, I look forward to that.
I do too. I've been reading periodically, lots of webinars, downloading, expanding, understanding. I've just started reading American Hemp Farmer.
Ah.
Adventures in the Cannabis Trade. And I thought a great way to start before Kira leads us into enlightenment with CBD and hemp globally, it says here, the author Doug Fine says, for backyard gardeners and pros, working in a hemp field is the most fun you can have outside your bedroom. Wow.
There's some farmers in California that might dispute that this year, but
exactly. Let's chat about what's happening in the market nationally and globally and where we go to support it.
So hemp in the US is in a funny place this year. Last year in January, the hemp farm bill passed, and all states had to contemplate, are we going to allow hemp? Many of them, like Kentucky and Colorado, have already had hemp growing regularly, so it was easy transition. California, we've never had hemp growing commercially and legally.
Right.
So we had a lot of farmers. We had a combination of farmers who said, okay, this is, from the agriculture world, it's a new crop, it's interesting, there seems to be a really good margin. And then from the element of the gold rush, you had a bunch of people coming in and saying, hey, farmers, we know hemp and we'll grow with you. And my husband is actually a 23-year veteran of commercial agriculture in California. So he understands the landscape. He knows the farmers. He understands how you grow vegetables, et cetera. So hearing his interpretation is really interesting. And I remember about April or May of last year, when it's really hot in the Southern California desert, these guys said, oh, it's cheap to grow there. And Billy said, don't do it. So he sent me a picture about a month later. The plants were about this high and they had colas on them this big.
Oh boy.
So you want your plants to be 5 feet high, right?
Right.
Full of colas. It's not a long growing process, but it takes some time. So this means they just lost a ton of money because their harvest is done. They have to harvest it, they have to pull it, and they got what they got. We had other situations where we had an organic farmer who put several acres in his field, and right next door, he had another farmer who didn't get feminized seeds. And in hemp, you have to use feminized seeds because you want those buds to grow. So you've got to keep the males away. So we ended up, carefully growing this product for months. And in the end, it was full of seed because our neighbors didn't use feminized seeds. So they corrupted this crop. So just story after story after story like this. So there were problems with growing it. On the other end, once it got harvested, we had all these people decided we're going to grow smokable flower. They spent $1 million. One company spent $1 million in labor hand picking it, and it's still sitting in their coolers 6 months, 8 months later.
What's going to happen with that?
Don't know. Nobody is buying biomass, which is the product that you use, send to the extractor to turn into CBD oil. That's where you extract the oil. Nobody's buying. So now everyone is just scrambling, and the farmers are saying, I'm not doing that this year. I couldn't even sell my crop. Why would I do this again? The market's completely overflooded. So what's going to happen is we're in this kind of interesting zone where CBD continues to grow in popularity. More and more people are starting CBD related businesses. And we also may be on the cusp of finding that CBD and maybe CBG and CBC as a combination actually are effective against COVID. I'm reading a lot of research that's going on.
Balance endocannabinoid system, homeostasis makes sense to have a stronger immunological response. Yes.
And CBG is a really effective and potent anti-inflammatory. So if you're, suffering from this disease, your body is having an immune response that is creating inflammation. So if you can counter that, you can actually help to keep your body in a healthier state during the illness. So if this happens, I was told the other day that projections are, if it hit the news that CBD can help COVID, within 3 days, we would be out of the world supply of what's currently available because the demand is so high.
It's important to say
farmers that aren't planting hemp this year.
So we're going to have, supply demand. Yes. Please, we need to state at this point, we are not medical professionals.
No. This is just speculation and industry analysis. This is I am not giving medical advice, and it has not yet been charted. There's no research that's come out that said it's effective. It's just that they are doing the research now. And if we find, which of course we're very optimistic and believe very much that they will, it could completely disrupt the market. Mm-hmm. So, and then on the other hand, on the other side of this, throughout the supply chain, so you've got, growing it, harvesting it, processing it, turning it into oil. And then what are you going to do with the oil? So this presents another issue that we're dealing with, which is it's not legal to ingest, but everybody's making tinctures. The FDA hasn't given approval yet. The FDA has said, well, a lot of people are using it. Nobody's really died from it. It doesn't seem to be presenting any kind of immediate health issues. Right. But in order for us to approve it, it's a very long process. And we can't do that. We don't have the funding. We don't have the time right now. But Congress, so ladies, contact your local congressman, because Congress can actually push it forward. They just haven't yet. And when we look at what's happening in COVID, when we've got cannabis itself, right? So now we've gone from this giant stigma around cannabis. You've got massive taxes. It's very difficult to get a license. And yet we're now at this essential service while CBD stores are shut down because they're not considered essential. It's just kind of weird warping position on things that I don't understand, but that's where we are today.
That's where we are today. But murky, clear as mud. Clear as mud. Clear as mud. So is it a good time to start considering a career change or empowering ourselves to understand this plant and possibilities of being involved in this supply chain and supporting with the talent that we bring? What do you think, Kira? Is now a good time?
Better, as good a time as any. The thing that I love so much about being in this industry and working with women is that the majority of them have come to cannabis because it's touched their life, whether it's the marijuana side, the hemp side, or the CBD, right? So these are three distinct industries, even though they're essentially the same plant, but the only thing that makes them different is an arbitrary marker of 3% THC, 0.3% THC. So that is the distinction between marijuana and hemp. It is completely arbitrary and fake. It's the same plant.
It's the same plant. So if it was legal, it would be easier then to be able to move it across our state lines. It would just expand the industry's opportunity by growing a plant that we know is helpful on so many levels.
Yes, and I've been in this industry for a long time. I grew up around cannabis, and just about every week someone will tell me something new. Oh, by the way, we just discovered hemp does this too. It just never ceases to amaze me how versatile and beneficial that plant really is. Yes. So we have these three industries, and within those industries, there's an economy within each of them. So someone actually said it's not an industry, it's an economy. And I completely agree. And we can look at each of them as these different economies within the economy. So with cannabis, or let's take, since your audience is hemp and CBD, let's focus on that. So we have medical, we have financial, we have food, we have fiber, we have concrete, we have all of these different industries. And what that means is we need talent. Because we're a brand new industry, we need people from other industries who can bring their knowledge and their skills, because just because you're in cannabis or hemp or CBD now doesn't mean that all business rules don't apply. It's still a business. So if you have a background in accounting, if you have a background in education or nursing, all of that is needed. Whatever it is that you're doing, if you've come to a place in life where you feel like, I want my mission, I want the rest of my life to be spent bringing this plant forward, bringing the healing to the masses, destigmatizing this product, then it is a phenomenal experience. There is an incredible tribe of people here who are very supportive and also met with that same passion. So, you put these people together who are just extremely passionate about what they're doing. And the results are incredible products, innovations, and brilliant women. It just brings the most brilliant women. You said it when we started this, at the meetup that I threw in Florida. Everywhere in cannabis, that I've ever thrown a meetup across the world. The women that show up are brilliant. They have huge hearts. They're great community builders. And no matter how down in the dumps I may be or defeated I might be feeling in that moment, their love and energy it puts the wind back in my sails and it keeps me going. And because of the fact that we're dealing with so much stigma, the women in the industry have realized that we really are better together. And so there's a tremendous amount of collaboration and resource sharing and information giving away like I've never seen in an industry before. Right. And when I was in tech and entertainment, there was always this desire for women to be closer. But when you met a woman, it was kind of, I got the knife behind my back. Can you help me, or are you going to be a threat?
Oh.
If you're going to be a threat, I may want to, but I got to protect my position, right? We've got one seat at the table here, or two if we're lucky. Mm-hmm. So in cannabis, if I'm in marketing and you're a nurse, I still want to talk to you and you want to talk to me, because what you're doing impacts what I'm doing. What I'm doing impacts what you're doing. So all across the supply chain, in every aspect of this industry, women want to connect with each other because every piece means something to every other piece. So whether you're in finance or healthcare or food or education or manufacturing, I want to talk to everybody and everybody wants to talk to each other. So it creates a very different kind of, there's not this sense of like elitism or clickiness. Some groups do it among themselves. It's inevitable. But for the whole of the women in the industry, come on, sister, we want you, we need you. Let's get you onboarded, let's get you in, because there's a lot of work to do and we don't have time to mess around. We have legalization to fight. We have products that we need to get out. We've got to educate everybody that we can so we can get them off the drugs. We can get them off the things that are polluting the planet. And we can make hemp and CBD our standards for medicine, building, fibers. I mean, the miracles of hemp just never cease to amaze me.
Absolutely. Preach.
So I know that was a really long-winded answer to your question, but I hope I got it.
Fabulous answer. And it's together we thrive in this community and the supportiveness. Canna Sisters, hashtag Canna Sisters. And again, that's not just talking about cannabis, it's talking about the entire plant, as Kira identified. The only difference is that 0.3% THC by dry weight, that is a differentiator.
Yes.
To in the CBD category, a hemp category, and then the marijuana category. Please enlighten us on good business practices. I'm going over when we had our tech check earlier this week, you raised some amazing points, and I appreciate you sharing those with the team and our listeners. Thank you, everybody, for being here today. Hope you find this as exciting as and empowering as we do, speaking with Kira.
Yes. So there are 5 points for women who are interested in making the transition to the industry. So we're talking specifically about the hemp and CBD side, which is a different proposition than getting into cannabis, the marijuana side. The marijuana side requires federal background checks, a lot of investment up front, applying for applications, and you're limited by a tax code called 280E, which does actually not allow you to create any business expenses. So your employees, your rent, you can't write any of it off. So a lot of people on the outside think, oh, cannabis, that's where you make all the money. Cannabis people are rich. Honestly, I don't know one single person in this industry except the very, 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 very top. Everybody I know has been struggling until COVID, when all of a sudden we were an essential service. But hemp and CBD it's an open door. It's fully legal, and you don't have to jump through a bunch of hoops to get there. Excuse me. So the 5 things that I think are very helpful in considering if you want to make that transition. Number 1, know your value and bring it. So what I was saying earlier about how we need people from all different industries, that is what I mean. Understand your skills and your value in a traditional business sense, because that is desperately needed. We do not have enough professionals in this industry. So bring that value to the industry and let people know, hey, this is what I do and this is what I bring and this is how I want to help this industry. Look at it as it's brand new. It's just a baby industry. CBD's been around for a little while, but it's been in the gray zone. Hemp is now legal 1 year and 4 months. So there's a lot of building to do. Number 2, build your network. So when you understand who you are, what your value is, then you step in to the industry, and now you need to start building your network. You need to know who are the thought leaders and opinion leaders in the industry, especially your vertical. If you're going to be doing smokable flowers, if you're going to be doing tinctures or topicals, who is doing really well? And I don't want you to look at it from a competitor sense. You need to do that as part of your business practice. This is more who is leading the industry, whose voice is dictating where we're going, who is being the pioneer in this industry. Find those women. They're out there. Find them, connect with them, build a tribe, join groups. There's a lot of groups on LinkedIn and Facebook. Go to events, go to networking meetings. There's a lot that's being done virtually right now that is allowing women to actually connect with each other and network. Participate in all of those things because, like I said earlier, this is not an industry that's going to shut you out or that's going to look at you as competition. We are going to look at you as another sister we need in this fight. You're part of our army now. And that's why the umbrella is big with marijuana, hemp, and CBD. We have different issues, but we're still dealing with banking. We're still dealing with stigma. We all have to face those things, no matter what side of the fence you're on. So build that network. Get to know who's important. Get to read their articles. Listen to podcasts. These women are still very accessible through social media and email. So participate in the industry. Then learn the ropes of the industry. And these things all kind of go together. But if you know your value and you bring it, you connect with the right women, and you use them to help you, guide you to what are the ropes. So Business Practice 101, you have to bring every single thing you've ever learned about how to conduct a meeting, how to write reports, how to do a presentation. That will make you stand out already in the industry, that level of professionalism. But then you need to understand the industry, because I will tell you that there is one bit of snobbery, and that is if you don't know what you're talking about, if you come in and give an appearance of being a taker, you're not going to last long. There is not a lot of tolerance for that. You got to bring value, you've got to give it, but when doing that, you also will be able to receive and say, hey, can I ask you some questions about this? I'm not really sure. Can you point me in the right direction where I might find these answers? Can you connect me with somebody who's a pro at this that can help me with this? That happens all the time. But you've got to show up with something to give and with the respect of those who've come before you, and you'll be welcomed. The fourth thing is no supply chain. If you don't understand hemp genetics at a very basic level, then when you're buying CBD on the other end, you're not going to understand what it is that you're buying. You're not going to understand how to read a COA, a certificate of analysis, which is the number one document that you need to understand if you're going to be in a CBD business. You've got to know what's in your product and where it comes from. You need to understand, yes.
I'm just going to say that is also translated as third-party lab testing, correct? The test and the authenticity, the purity, the science-backed COA to the product you're using. The last webinar of this month is how to read a COA. Just putting that out there. Yes. Yeah.
That's brilliant. Because if you don't, you also have to maintain consistency.
Right.
So you can't do that if you're just buying CBD off the market. You really actually need to develop a relationship with a farmer so you can have some consistency, right? Because those are the ones that are going to last. Right now, the market is flooded. We've got a ton of cheap oil in here from China. The public doesn't really know, but they will get educated. And when they do, it will be very similar to organics. You know, you can't really pull the wool over a woman's eyes when she knows how to read a label. So the same thing will happen with CBD. So know the whole process, know how it's harvested, know how and where is it grown outdoors or is it grown indoors? You don't want, I'm not really a big fan of hemp that's grown indoors. So what does that mean when it's grown outdoors? Where was it grown in relation to other fields or conventional fields? Have these farmers done it before? Will they be around next year? What was the strain that they were using? So there's a lot of things you need to understand about that piece of it. And then you need to understand how it was processed. Did they use ethanol? Did they use CO2? What else do they do in that processing lab? Could it have been contaminated? Here's a really interesting thing we learned yesterday. So my husband's company sold some flour to a processor. And they grew that absolutely organic. It was grown in a pristine field. On the other end, they got the COAs back loaded with pesticides.
Why?
What? Turns out they were stored in a cooler with onions. And the onions were grown conventionally and gassed the hemp and contaminated it with the pesticides.
Oh my gosh.
Right? So these are all these crazy lessons that we're learning right now. So every day we learn something new, but you've got to understand the supply chain so that you can backtrack when things go wrong. You know where to look in each part of the supply chain to get back to that problem. Then you've got to understand, okay, now what kind of oil do I want? Do I want to use a distillate? Do I want to use isolate? Do I want broad spectrum or full spectrum? You need to understand the terminology so that you're making the right choices for your product. And then at the very end of that chain is all of your bottling and packaging and how you're going to ship it out and what is your website and how are you positioning this in a way that's different from everybody else on the market. So if you don't understand every one of those points, you're setting yourself up for failure. Know your supply chain.
Right.
And there is something that we need to consider in the concept of the supply chain, which may also be another opportunity. A lot of our bottles, labels come from China. We've got breaks in the chain now.
Yes.
And we need to find other sources. We need to start sourcing from Mexico. We need to start sourcing from the US. We need to start sourcing from places that we have better relationships with.
Canada.
Will cost more.
Mm-hmm.
So, you've got to be able to balance your numbers, understanding that where you used to be able to rely on getting product, that's not necessarily going to be the case anymore. So understand all of those elements, do your research. And then finally, the last one is apply good business practices. The number of mistakes that so easily could have been avoided by just respecting the fact that you've got to work under a contract. And those contracts are what protect you. You need to make sure that your bills are paid. You need to make sure that you show up to meetings, dress like you're going to a meeting, like you care, that you have a presentation. Anything that would have been expected from you in another industry in terms of a level of professionalism applies here too. Keep your books, put people on payroll. Do the things that you are supposed to do to run a business. That is not negated just because you are in this industry. But on top of that, so all your traditional business practices apply, but then you have to go a step further and you have to understand, what am I dealing with in this industry? Because even if it's hemp or CBD, it's still regulated. And if you don't understand those regulations and the risks you're taking, you could put yourself in a lot of trouble. For instance, tinctures are not legal. There's a gray area around it.
Whoa.
Because the FDA hasn't approved it. Saying that earlier. So, but Kira, there's all this CBD on the market. I know everybody's taking a tincture. How are they selling it? This is what you need to understand, that this is where we are in this industry. So you're taking a chance. Is that risk worth it to you? I don't know a single CBD company that has been fined or shut down. It's very hard to get ads run. It's hard to do anything similar to the way it is with THC and marijuana. It's very hard to get anything done in the digital space because of this. So understand the risks. Are you willing to take that? Topicals, much easier. But it puts a lot of confusion in the market when Arby's has a burger, a CBD burger, and every time you turn on the TV, it's about another tincture that's, gives me big muscles or whatever. I see so many weird CBD commercials. It's bizarre. But it says to the market, this is legal. But the reality is, as a business owner, that's a risk you're taking. So if you don't understand that, and you don't understand why, and you don't understand how to pass it through regulations so that you can be a part of the solution, it may not be the right thing for you. maybe being a hemp farmer is better. If you come from an ag background, maybe developing CBD products for pets, which is a huge market right now. Very stringent, but doesn't require the same kind of FDA approvals because it's not for human consumption. So it's really understand what is happening in that industry before you commit your time and your resources to something that may end up backfiring on you. So really dig in and learn everything you can about the legal status of hemp throughout the supply chain, because there are different points in the supply chain where it becomes legal or not. For instance, in California, we can't legally extract here.
What?
So we've got all this hemp and we've got all this oil. How to get made? So it's just this industry of complete gray area. So you've got to make sure, do a gut check. Are you comfortable living in this kind of ambiguity that we don't know when it's going to end? I mean, welcome to life today. It's all ambiguous. But when you're putting your money into something, it changes the proposition. So are you as committed to CBD and pushing it forward? Great, jump on board. We need your energy. We need your passion. You've got a community to support you. But if you're not willing to take that risk, hold off until it's completely legal.
So interesting. Do you mind just a quick download of those 5 points by topic for those of us taking notes?
Bring your value, build your network, learn the ropes, know your supply chain, and apply good business practices, and learn the regulatory framework around the industry you're interested in.
The ever-changing landscape of regulatory framework. Mm-hmm.
Sorry about that. I don't know why that's happening. I thought I shut everything down. Apologies.
Thank you, Stephanie, for monitoring the chats. I'm seeing you added Kira's LinkedIn, and we have some really great questions and feedback. Wonderful support for what you're sharing with us, Kira. Thank you so much.
No, you're so welcome. Is there any questions I can answer?
Yeah, let's take a question. Is hemp legal to ship from state to state or country to country?
It is legal to ship from state to state, country to country. It all depends on, it's a big gray area. It depends on the country it's going to, because there are countries that still, it's illegal. There are other countries, for instance, the UK, there is a movement around hemp, but CBD can only be in isolate form. So it's a product that can grow, but how you use it is very, very, very specific. So they're not going to have quite the demand in European countries, isolate only. Their big demand is going to be for that finished product. But I have a very good friend who's in the hemp industry. She's actually the founder of the British Hemp Association. And she was telling me that in the history of the UK, they had, I guess it was Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn. My history facts may be off on this, but Britain had to break off from the rest of Europe for a while. And so they were completely isolated, and they were paying their farmers to grow hemp because hemp provided so much sustenance for the community. So what we're looking at now in the UK is this bringing back the hemp to now, once again, as they move into the state of Brexit, where they're going to be completely dependent on themselves again, they're looking at hemp as being a really viable crop that they're going to bring back. So they're seeing it as kind of part of British independence, which I thought was really interesting. So, in Greece, they're growing it like crazy. So it just depends on the country. But it's much more liberal here and in Canada. So I wouldn't be so interested in the import market. There's so much business to be done here.
Absolutely. And can we talk about those states that are not hemp friendly at all? For example, Idaho If you're moving biomass across the state lines, it has happened where you'll be stopped and your freight will be seized. So there are, yes, it's primarily legal to ship and to move hemp, with exception of, help me out, Kira, Idaho and a couple other states that are not as hemp friendly.
I know that Florida just passed their hemp program. Texas just passed their hemp program. I don't know who else is being stingy about it right now.
One of the Dakotas.
The Dakotas.
Yes.
So it's really, transportation is really interesting. And the companies who figured it out, what they do as part of their service is they plan out their route, and then they call every jurisdiction that they're going to be in. They give them the license plate of the truck, and they let them know ahead of time when they'll be passing through that area. Because there have been a lot of transportation issues because cops will smell pot. Mm-hmm. And they don't know how to tell the difference, right? Because it's an arbitrary marker. It looks the same, it smells the same. Mm-hmm. So that has been a big problem, but they're figuring it out. And the difference is it is federally legal. Mm-hmm. So the issue isn't quite like transporting marijuana, where if you did that through Idaho, you're landing major jail time. So, yeah.
Very interesting. Carry on. Oh my goodness.
Is there any other questions that I can answer?
Just some comments. We put the question out if anybody was interested in starting their own business. And Jen mentioned she'd love to create a coalition of brand builders, designers, content creators to support new product development, product launches, and business growths. So any thoughts on that, Kira?
That is a great idea. And one of the things that both the whole cannabis industry, whichever bucket you're in, needs, and that is legitimate branding. Part of legitimizing and destigmatizing is having companies that feel legit, and that is communicated through branding. And when I started in this industry, I come from a marketing and branding background, that's what my agency does. It was clip art with, pot leaves with stony eyes and joints, and that was the standard. And even to this day in my town, we've got billboards that I just faceplant every time I see them. They don't understand messaging. The imagery is blurry. It doesn't draw anybody in. But especially on the cannabis side and the THC side, they're making a lot of money, and they don't. As long as customers are coming through the door, they don't feel the pressure to actually upgrade, to bring their brand into a new space to help legitimize the industry. So where there's this kind of constant push and pull. On the CBD side, what I see a lot of is just very generic. Everybody's rushing to put it in a bottle. There's no distinction. There's no real communication to the customer about what makes this product different. And there's not a lot of innovation in the space. I talk to people who are constantly wanting to hire me to help to build their marketing and branding. And they don't understand. They put it in a bottle. They think it's supposed to sell. They don't understand why it's selling. So putting a coalition of people together who can help raise standards is a brilliant idea.
Isn't that what your company is about? Marker.com? You've been helping, right? You really have a strong filter for the brands you represent. There's a lot of boxes they have to meet before you'll even take that brand on and bring them to market. Can you tell us about that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So their passion has to be in the right place. I'm really not interested in working with a company that isn't part of the movement, part of taking responsibility for destigmatization, whether it's on, whichever bucket it's in. I want to work with companies who are committed to their marketing. There are companies that I've worked with in the past who think that they want marketing. They understand it's part of the business, but they don't understand how to integrate it into their company. They don't understand that in this industry, because we're so limited in our ability to advertise, and we have so many constraints on us in how we can talk about our product, that if you don't make that up with other messaging and marketing and ways to engage and create experiences for your customers, you're going to get lost in the noise. So it's really, really critical, especially for this industry, that every company really commit to a strong marketing performance, and that they have a very clear brand, because your branding comes first. Your branding is who are you? Your branding is your colors, your messaging, your logo. It's how people recognize you. But a lot of brands want to skip the line and go straight to social media, and they haven't figured it all out. And so their audience has to figure it out with them. And that's not how you build a community. So you've got to you've got to do marketing, and then get into social media, then start hiring people, then hire a PR firm or a publicist, start getting your story out. But if you don't do those very critical steps, I don't work with you, because we've got to start somewhere. We've got to have a foundation, because your web designer, your PR person, your graphic designer, your ads person, all of these people need the same information from your brand. And to recreate it at every touch point creates inconsistencies that make your brand look messy. So yeah, I start with branding.
Start with branding. Do you also rely on science and proof of knowing that it's a good quality product that you're putting forward? So you mentioned a passion for advocacy and really having a good branding, marketing, but what about the real quality promise? Because as you said, consumers are getting smarter. Do we rely on science to find good CBD products and that lab testing? Is that part of your checklist?
Yes. And that is all determined really in the very first meeting I have with them. If they just want to have oil from China and put it in a bottle and push it out and make money, what will happen is, in the process that I use with branding, the very first step is what I call a value session. And I spend about 4.5 to 5 hours with the client, pulling out of them what their values are. Why did you start the company? How do you treat your employees? Really understanding. And if that's where they're coming from, where they're just trying to make money and push product, that session's going to be very painful. Because there is no value set. There's nothing there that a customer can actually grab onto and create a relationship with. Because CBD, I'm realizing, is one of those things. When you find the product you like, you stick with it, right? Because it becomes consistent for you. It's reliable. You don't want to add in a bunch of other stuff and try this and try that, because then you're not really sure what's working for you. So there's a lot of customer loyalty, but if you don't put the work in to make that product valuable to them, you're not going to have that. So branding and understanding who you are without that value set that you can bring forward, I don't want to work with you. You're inauthentic. And the way that I work is all about the authenticity of the brand. So I don't come in and tell you, this is your archetype, this is how you should talk. It all has to generate from within the key stakeholders in the brand, the people who created it. That's their vision. So if I have nothing to pull out of you, you just want to make money, that's not going to work. I want to help. And even in my pitch deck, I make it very clear. I'm interested in working with companies that want to build community, that want to have thought leadership, that want to innovate in the industry, and that really want to bring a good product to market. I had an interesting conversation with a woman who's basically wants to release the Rick Simpson oil, which is, Rick Simpson oil is one of the original medical industry or medical marijuana products that is used in the treatment of cancer. It's a very highly respected product, the equivalent in the CBD world. Now that's someone I can get behind.
Let's chat about CBD and psychoactivity for a moment, because that seems to be, there's two sides to this, where it's marketed non-psychoactive, but anyone that's taken CBD consistently, found a really good organic biodynamic brand that resonates with their endocannabinoid system, will have a not psychoactive effect, but a positive mental state, a higher state of relaxation, seemingly calmness in their life, and kind of that simmering down the edges of an overactive nervous system with homeostasis at the forefront. So in your opinion, is CBD psychoactive or not, or do we need to start reframing this conversation for consumer clarity and healing?
So I was just looking around for my daily bowl of pills, because one of the things that I take every day is my husband brought home some really great flour, hemp flour. I ground it up in my coffee grinder and I put it in the capsules, and I take that every day. The reason that I do that is because raw hemp flour contains the acid formations of CBD and THC. And in that acid formation, it has very different properties than when it has been heated or decarboxylated and turned into the CBD and THC that we're familiar with. So even though I also consume THC, my CBD gives me a very different experience. So this is the conversation around broad spectrum, full spectrum, isolate, okay? Because this is where the decision starts. So a full spectrum is basically you extract the oil, and it's got everything in it. It's got the twigs in it. It's a darker color, but it has everything as the plant made it in those equal portions for your terpene profiles. Terpenes being the things that make it taste and smell and give it the color. That combined with the cannabinoids, CBD, THC, CBG, CBN, those things together create that full profile that gives you a perfect medicinal experience as nature intended it. The next step is where you distill it, which is called a distillate. And that's where you start to take out all of the twigs and you start to kind of clean it up. So it's a much prettier product, but it's not in that full spectrum. But with full spectrum, you get the taste. And if you're making an edible or a tincture, you may not want that really potent taste. But if you're making a topical, what does it matter, right? So that's when you go for the full spectrum, or if you want to give your customers that full spectrum tincture experience. The distillate's great for those edibles. The next is, in the distillate form, the next thing you do is you remove all that THC, and then it becomes a broad spectrum product. So you're not at risk at all of having any kind of THC activation. And then finally, you turn it into an isolate. And in the isolate is where you're taking just that CBD molecule and you're pulling it out, and it's got to be in powder form. So it is the least effective. You need the most CBD, the higher amount of CBD to create the same effect. And you are at risk of actually overdosing, because you have to have so much more of it in order to actually have the same kinds of effects as you would with something much lower dose at full spectrum. Okay, so now that the stage is set with that,
great.
The THC component in the full spectrum product, in order to be considered a CBD product, has to be under that 3%, right? When you heat a product, you spark it's called decarboxylation, and that is actually what triggers the THC to be psychoactive. You could eat a marijuana flower. If it has not been dried, you won't get high. It hasn't gone through that process yet. So what we're learning is that things like, if you ate, like I have cream with my coffee in the morning. So I take my hemp pills first thing in the morning when I have my cream and my coffee, because it's fat soluble. In addition, I take a CBD tincture because I'm not getting CBD from my hemp flower. So I want it from a tincture on top of the hemp flower. Now, what that does when it combines with the fat in my body is it creates a very strong effect very quickly. And that is what creates this sense of euphoria. And when you take a CBD tincture with your flower, the two combined with that fat soluble, it's like buzz. It is just the most incredible feeling. And there's no THC in it. But because my body, my nerve endings, it's like this, the endocannabinoid system is so, there was a recent TED talk where a researcher was saying, we used to think the brain was the center of the body, but it's the endocannabinoid system. And so when you're feeding that endocannabinoid system, your body is saying, thank you so much. Oh, I feel so good. And honestly, that is what has gotten me through COVID. I'm dealing with every day different emotions. The weight of the world is heavy, but I'm not destroyed because I have my hemp, and it keeps me from my mind from spinning, from too much paranoia, from going down those dark avenues. It keeps me lifted and it keeps me focused. So whatever is at hand is what's at hand. I don't get spun in other universes anymore. And everyone that I've given my hemp flower to, everyone in my family is experiencing the same thing. So it all depends on where you're deficient, what that hemp needs to be working on, what that CBD needs to be working on to bring you into homeostasis. But the effects of pure, unadulterated hemp flower.
Amen. Amen.
Whew, I won't go without it anymore.
So psychoactive or not?
It's not psychoactive if it has had the THC removed. It can provide some psychoactive effects if you're not THC acclimated. So I can take a ton of CBD, but because I have consumed THC regularly, I don't notice it. A friend of mine in her 80s took it, a very small dose, and whew. But I don't think that's the psychoactive effect. I think that's the yummy buzz that her body is getting, that sense of euphoria, because we've been begging for this for so long, and now you gave it to us. Ooh. So, unless you've actually consumed THC, it's easy to get those two things confused because it's a feeling your body may not have had before from a natural product.
Yes, exactly. And it's definitely palatable change and shift in the body's feeling. Absolutely resonate with that clarity, the focus.
And I'll tell you one more thing that I find very interesting is that when you take raw hemp flower versus an oil,
yes,
you're getting, and I got this from the book Healing in CBD, it's a very technical book, but it's a brilliant book.
It's
the woman who wrote it,
Nesney, written by a registered nurse.
Yes, exactly.
The book. Brilliant.
Exactly.
I have it here.
I saw her speak at NCIA last year. And what she said is, yes, Healing in CBD. It's a brilliant, brilliant book. And this woman is really leading edge. If you want to find out about CBD, follow her. Okay. What she said was that when the raw flower, it's up to 100 times more effective than the oil. So I need this much flour to do the job of this much oil.
And our body assimilates that in its most natural form. It's not processed at all. It's just like taking oregano or parsley or anything fresh, maybe dry, but still effective. For those in our spa space, studying holistic health, practitioners, to further what Kira is saying, one of the best resources for education on raw cannabis, there are online certifications with healer.com. Doctor and osteopath Dr. Dustin Sulak is really leading in education on a medical level, but also helping us understand on a scientific level raw cannabis and why it's so important. So that's healer.com.
That's great. Mm-hmm. Adding on to that specifically for the beauty industry.
Yes, brilliant.
Research CBDA, because CBDA and THCA, which is non-psychoactive acid form of THC,
right?
They are actually being shown to be very effective in dealing with skin issues. Because what the THCA and the CBDA do in the plant is they are basically there's the most stem cells available in that product. So they capture the broken or corrupted cells in the plant, and they either repair them or they push them out of the plant. Okay. So when you put CBDA or THCA on your skin or you ingest it, it's accelerating your body's ability to do that on its own. So it's giving a hand in cleaning out the garbage from your skin. And my father, I went to go visit him over the summer, and he had something on his face that was really upsetting to me. It looked very much like cancer, but he refused to go get it taken care of. It's been there forever. Yeah. So I got him to start putting some CBDA cream on it. And it has been about 4 or 5 months. And he said, I'm almost out and this thing is almost gone. Send me more because I think I'm going to get rid of this.
Right.
Just putting the CBDA on it every day. So it's really very, very potent. And I think that the beauty industry and the spa industry has a lot of potential with that product, but nobody's really jumping on it yet.
CBD's gotten us started for certain, and we're just getting started. Just getting started.
So CBG, CBC, and CBN, those are the big ones to keep an eye out for over the next year. We don't have a lot. I expected there would be a lot more people growing CBG this year, but I think CBD is just kind of left a bad taste in the farmers' mouths here. So we're not going to have as much CBG on the market as we were expecting from California. Mm-hmm. And CBN, do you know how I make CBN?
Oh.
It's THC that has gotten old. So basically, if you go to harvest and you just leave, you cut your colas down, you just leave them in the field and let the sun bake them, essentially, that THC is going to become CBN.
Fabulous.
And isn't that interesting? And CBN is actually the best sleep aid you can get because it releases a hormone that, if you wake up in the middle of the night, sometimes you can't go back to sleep. This actually makes sure you go back to sleep. It's really a brilliant, brilliant product. But the cool thing about understanding cannabinoids is that it isn't just present in the plant and accessible the way that CBD and THC are readily available. So CBN you only get when THC has reached a certain point, then it converts to CBN. CBG or CBC, and then there's two new ones that were just discovered in Italy, and they had to discover those by doing all these crazy isolations and water and fat and creating all these solutions to then pull it out of the plant. Okay. So science around this is just endlessly fascinating, and scientists are saying that we're only at about 2 to 3% understanding of the full cannabinoid profiles in cannabis.
That's amazing. So much hope and so much on the horizon. So, Kira, thank you so much for this.
You're welcome.
Encouragement, the empowerment, the community, the phenomenal education, your gracefulness. I called you a goddess on Instagram. I mean it. You're seriously leading the way, paving the way as we build this garden of plant-based healing and planet-based healing. And with that, I wanted to offer you a flower.
Oh, thank you.
So flowers for both of you and for everyone on the webinar today is we celebrate Mother's Day this weekend, which is those you love, the women energy, the planet, Mother Earth. Get out there and love on her like she supports us. Is there anything else to add before we wrap today?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you so much, Kim. Your energy is you're just such a bundle of love. Thank you for being a good light in my life. I love talking with you, and I just love having you in my tribe. Thank you for everything you're doing.
Oh, thank you, Kira. I truly appreciate that because I don't always feel it. It's been clear as mud, like we said, and I'm really just trying to find the next best way to make a difference. And I truly believe that hemp and CBD in this community and this path are part of that. So thank you for opening your heart and having us be part of your tribe with all you do. And Stephanie,
you're a gift to our community.
Yes, got to. And Stephanie is our wizard and our wonderful woman of Caribbean we. She's got some cool things happening also and just such a light. So thank you both and everyone joining the webinar.
Thank you all. Very interesting. Happy Mother's Day, everyone.
Happy Mother's Day.
Have a great weekend.